So come back 2 days after we did the original work, when we had pulled all the rotted timber out and just checking the work that I've done earlier, and you'll see that the wood is a little bit deeper in colour, and that's quite normal with the wood fix product because it's soaked in and it's absorbed into the timber, changing the nature of the colour. That's for a short period, but doesn't really matter in this application because we are going to fill this up shortly with a patch it product. But I basically just come and do a once over to ensure that the work we had done is still intact. If there's any further preparation of the paint or surrounding surfaces that need to be removed or sanded, I'll do that now, because in a moment I'm going to mix the patch it product up, fill this void and turn this piece of wood back into how it was intended. So it looks fairly stable, not a bad job done by Chief, ready to go. Okay, so we're going to now mix the patch it into a paste form that allows us to trowel into that area. So basically the patch it is a powder product, a lightweight powder that when I mix water to it, it will form into a paste, and that allows me to trowel that into that area. So I start with about 180 ml of water for every kilo of powder that I'm using, and the patch it comes in both 1 and 4 kilo sizes. But unlike a 2-component epoxy product or anything like that, this product, a lot of it is by eye because you form it into a paste form. So once I've got it into a trowelable consistency, almost like a render mortar, and as I add the water in, add the powder to the water and give it a stir, and you can see I'm stirring that up, and I just keep adding the powder in there until I get a consistency that allows me to make it trowelable on a vertical surface. Now, I could use a little electric drill stirrer, but this powder is so easy to mix by hand, and it's been deliberately designed that way for little patch-up jobs that it doesn't require that, but it's a very lightweight material. And you can see that now, that's stirring into a more pasty consistency. And I get all those little lumps out. And as you put a bit of force into that, it does look like a render mix, but it actually is very lightweight. So nice and fluffy. And I'll let that settle now for a few minutes, because what happens is the powder starts to hydrate with the water, and there's a chemical reaction that's happening in there that'll start to stiffen a little bit. All the magic happens inside, and then in a moment I'll be able to get that ready to start applying into that void of the wood surface. The patch it in here is always good to use rubber gloves, nothing toxic, no dangerous odours, but in a surface like this I've got to really push it into the substrate and get it to fill that empty void. So plastic sheets on the ground are always going to help in getting that product in there. And I'm not too fussed about anything sort of coming out on the outer side, because when this dries later I'm going to sand all that off. But it's almost, imagine if you've used a putty before, it's very similar to a putty formation, except this is weatherproof, so I can smooth that in, and I can use a spatula like that to smooth that off, and just keep putting the product in to fill that void. So with my rubber gloves I can really push that in. And if you're not real good with a trowel, you can even get it in your hands like a mud and fill that void in like that.
So I've come back 4 hours after applying the patchet. It's nice and dry. I'm sanding, planing it and preparing it for the paint job, which I'll come back to tomorrow, and making this one look as good as new.
So we're back here and job complete. So you recall a few days ago we removed all that dead wood, took it all out, all the lost void timber, made sure we kept only the solid, stable timber that was left on this section here. You recall that we could see right through that, it rotted right through, treated with the wood fix, and that stopped any further fungi and rot from forming. And so that allowed us to leave that for 24 to 48 hours, absorb into the wood, take effect, and that'll continue to take effect inside the wood because it'll actually keep absorbing in. Then we use the patchet product to fill the void and complete that area, and you can see this is nice and solid and stable, crack free. Came back, sanded that after it had dried, and then next day a couple licks of paint and she's ready to go and looking as good as new now. So what is great about this system is that there's no odours, there's nothing that's flammable that's put on here, hasn't disturbed anyone inside or anyone outside, and quite a simple one to use. We coat it with our wood preservative, patch the lost void, and then prepare it for painting. And so many outdoor jobs like this is probably one of the harder ones where you've got so much wood mass that was lost. But if you've got window sills, doors, and the patch is not restricted just to timber, but we used it on this to show that it will handle the movement of timber, it won't crack. So if you've got any inquiries on this, please call our Monsta crew or contact us. I'm more than happy to give you some more tips on how to do this job at home or in the workplace. Great system, ready to go. If you've got any inquiries, let us know.